Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another Boruto Two Blue Vortex discussion. And today I want to talk to you guys about the brilliance behind what Boruto and Kashin Koji have done with how they've handled this whole Shinju threat, in particular when it comes to keeping Sarada in the dark, and how this one decision by them was the best path forward to force Sarada to use her Mangekyou Sharingan in this latest chapter. Which, speaking of the chapter review is being worked on right now by the chapter review editor. We didn't get the scans early this month in terms of the raw scans, so we had to wait for the chapter to be officially dropped, and I needed to double check some things that were wonky in the official translation because there were some debatable lines and translations given in the chapter, which makes sense. There were some rather nuanced ways that certain portions of the chapter were written during the Sarada and Yodo and Ryu moments. This is not me dunking on the official translation, just to clarify. As I've repeatedly said, Boruto has one of the better translations out of the titles that Viz Media has. Now, the last I heard from the editor who does the Two Blue Vortex reviews, we should be getting the review tomorrow for the review, so I thank you for your patience and your understanding, as well as for your continued support. Lastly, don't forget to check out my new Sakamoto Days video on my Anime Explained channel, breaking down all 9 members of the Sakamoto family, which I think you guys will definitely enjoy if you like that series. So jumping right in, I do believe that Kashin Koji and Boruto, even though neither one of them were in this chapter, they do deserve quite a bit of praise from every fan of the series. Allow me to explain why. Boruto and Kashin Koji's roles as singularities of fate involve making the difficult decisions to steer the timeline forward toward a future where Jura and his Shinju army can be defeated. Boruto choosing to keep Sarada and Sumire in the dark about all the plans that he has, his allies, and his location. It was not an act of distrust, but rather a necessary step to protect them from the enemies that were hunting him. More importantly, it was part of a much larger design, one that Kashin Koji orchestrated using his 10 Directions ability to see all multiple possible futures that are out there and manipulate the events in order to ensure that Sarada used the full potential of her Mangekyou Sharingan, which means that it could be a key staple moving forward. Now, the necessity of keeping Sarada and Sumire in the dark is where to start. It starts with the protection from Jura and the Shinju army. The Shinju creatures actively are hunting Boruto, and anyone who was useful to his knowledge in terms of knowledge about his whereabouts, they could be targeted, tortured, or manipulated into revealing crucial information. By keeping Sarada and Sumire ignorant of these details, the important details, Boruto ensured that if they were captured, if they were confronted, they wouldn't possess intelligence that would endanger him or his allies. His allies, of course, being Kashin Koji. Sumire's observation that their lack of knowledge was odd, it reflects this paradox we have. Boruto trusts them, yet he deliberately keeps them uninformed. However, Sarada later realizes that this was an act of protection, not exclusion, making that whole conversation with Sumire and Sarada hit a lot differently now, and also prove that both girls are right in their dissertation in terms of what Boruto is trying to do. Now, forcing Sarada to reach her own awakening is the next thing that was the goal here. By staying distant, Boruto unknowingly allowed Sarada to struggle with the decision of whether she should use her Mangekyou for others beside him like she had wanted to. Had she remained emotionally tethered to Boruto's presence, she might have continued to restrict herself, waiting only for a moment to use it to save him, because that was a huge part of why she even awakened the Mangekyou in the first place. The trauma that came from hearing of Naruto's death, feeling responsible for not being able to assist in things in the past, and being helpless at the thought of not being able to save Boruto and her own father wanting to hunt Boruto down and kill him. Kashin Koji's plan, which involves selecting the shinobi for the sand mission that we have, it put Sarada in a crisis scenario where she had no choice but to break her own self-imposed limitation and awaken her full power. You also have, most importantly, Buddhist and Shinto parallels that run extremely deep here. The role of a singularity of fate as a guided hand is where I have to start on that area. So in Buddhism and Shinto traditions, those who perceive the future or walk a predestined path often act in ways that seem cruel but serve a higher order. Kashin Koji, using his 10 Directions ability, operates much like a Bodhisattva who sees multiple possible outcomes and carefully nudges people down the correct path. Boruto, as a Singularity himself, is also fulfilling the role of a dharmic guide. He must ensure events unfold correctly. That is why he is the one out in the field and not someone like Kashin Koji. Koji's role is not to go into the field as of this moment. Think of it like tactical command. Kashin Koji has to be the one operating from a distance until a certain point in time. Even if it means measuring himself with a specific amount of burden in terms of isolation, which is what Boruto's had to do. Help his friends, but keep them at a distance, never getting too close to them. Just as in Buddhism, where a being might delay personal happiness for the greater good, Boruto's discomfort in keeping Sarada in the dark, it was a necessary sacrifice. It makes all those interactions that Boruto's had hit a lot differently. It's more than just feeling awkward like, hey, I got your dad sealed into a tree. It's more than that. There's another layer to it now. Sarada's awakening is also something that has been written as a karmic push. This builds on why her awakening the Mangekyou Sharingan in the first place had to be directly linked with Boruto's situation, the trauma that came from it, which that trauma by extension also includes the death of Naruto, which, as we all know, Naruto's still alive. So in Buddhist philosophy, suffering, it leads to enlightenment. Sarada's internal conflict over using her Mangekyou Sharingan is akin to an ascetic struggling with attachment. She feared using it recklessly for obvious reasons, it burns out, but she was also ultimately forced to embrace it for the sake of others, and also forced to remove her detachment that she would only use it for the sake of saving Boruto, something that she could not do prior to this. The realization that Boruto's secrecy was for her protection, it completed her karmic cycle. She accepted the burden of her power and now sees her duty clearly. It is to honor Boruto's decisions by using every tool available to her in order to defend those who they care for. It's actually really great personal growth when you sit down and you think about what it is that is happening here. There's also a intentional strengthening of Boruto and Sarada's bond, which I'm not using this as pairing fodder like people have been doing, so do not get that twisted. So Boruto's guilt versus Sarada's determination is next thing we have to look at. Boruto clearly struggles with the decision to keep Sarada uninformed. His immediate concern for her as the battle's unfolding, it suggests that he deeply cares about her well-being. However, Kashin Koji's foreknowledge implies that this separation, it was needed and necessary for her growth. And most importantly, Kashin Koji would have saw this moment here where Sarada uses the Mangekyou, meaning that the Mangekyou Sharingan, that was the true trump card when it comes to this battle with Ryu. Whether or not it's the only thing that takes down Ryu, that's to be determined. That's the beauty of following an ongoing series. We have to now go into volume 6 to see how this will be resolved. Also, Sarada, on the other hand, she is now fully in commitment and standing by Boruto's side. She's no longer halfway there. I'm going to use my basic Sharingan for everybody, but I'm only going to use my Mangekyou for Boruto. She is now willing to use Mangekyou to protect the very people that Boruto by extension would be trying to protect. She also recognizes that Boruto cannot face these enemies alone. By finally accepting her power, she is taking a definitive step towards becoming a true reliable partner in Boruto's battles, which is ironically the very thing she said she wanted to do in Boruto Naruto Next Generations chapter 69. And when you go back to the ending of Boruto Part 1, one of the things that you saw is that even though Sarada showing up did ultimately help change the timeline because Kawaki doesn't kill Boruto there, it did result in Boruto getting the scar over his eye having to protect Sarada. Sarada does not want to be a liability. It is also parallel to the sun and the moon motif, something that we largely attach to Boruto and Mitsuki, but it also applies here when it comes to Boruto and Sarada. So in Shinto belief, the relationship between Amaterasu, the goddess of the sun, which Sarada happens to have a Mangekyou Sharingan eye patterned after the sun itself, and Tsukuyomi, the god of the moon, which Boruto just happens in the anime to have his Jogan reawakened by somebody that is living on the moon. It represents a balance of light and darkness. Boruto, embodying fate's guidance, represents the hidden sun that leads the world through the shadows, while Sarada, through her Mangekyou Sharingan, represents the rising moon that has now been fully awakened. Even though, again, she has a Mangekyou Sharingan pattern after the sun, you can flip those roles because of this situation. Their bond is being redefined through these trials and tribulations that they're undergoing. Boruto had to lead Sarada towards awakening through distance. This is how we got this whole thing here. It served a different meaning other than just keeping her safe and keeping himself safe by extension. Sarada in turn now has a means to help him in return. By playing a crucial role in taking down Ryu, it now makes one less person hunting him down. It now also gives Boruto someone else he can count on. And it's not by mistake that we've already seen Boruto and Sarada fight side by side before. In conclusion, I'll say this. The Singularity's plan, so the Singularities obviously being Boruto and Kashin Koji, it is working. Boruto and Kashin Koji have successfully guided events in a way that ensures Sarada reaches her full potential. Kashin Koji's vision for the future and Boruto's actions, it ensured that Sarada would overcome her reluctance and embrace the Mangekyou Sharingan, giving her the necessary power to support Boruto against Jura. While Boruto may struggle with his choice to keep Sarada in the dark, this temporary hardship has strengthened their bond, setting the stage for them to fight side by side. Sarada is now ready to stand with Boruto, not as someone who he must protect, but now an ally who can share his burden. It's a great full circle moment to the ending of Boruto Naruto Next Generations. Obviously, again, this is not the chapter review. The chapter review will be up on the channel in the next couple of days, hopefully tomorrow. Again, going off what the chapter review editor said, it should be tomorrow. But in the meantime, click here to watch the latest Naruto Explained video, or click up here above to watch the latest blind review from my Everything One Piece Explained channel, or click here on the right to check out that Sakamoto Days video from my Anime Explained channel that I was talking about at the start of this video.